So what is business research, really? The term gets thrown around a lot, but it's so much more than just looking things up online. To really get what it's all about, we're going to start not with some big success story, but with a total failure, an accident, really, that ended up changing everything.
Picture this. It's 1968. A scientist over at 3M, Spencer Silver, is trying to cook up a super strong adhesive, something for the aerospace industry. But instead, he accidentally creates the exact opposite, a bizarrely weak glue. I mean, it was sticky, sure, but you could peel it right off without leaving a mark. He was fascinated by it, but nobody, and I mean nobody, at 3M could figure out what on earth to do with it.
So for 5 long years, Silver's weird, weak glue was just a curiosity. It was a solution just waiting for a problem to solve. And that problem, it turns out, belonged to another guy at 3M named Art Fry. See, Art sang in his church choir, and he was getting so frustrated because the little paper bookmarks he used to mark his hymns kept falling out. And then it hit him. He remembered his colleague's strange adhesive. What if he could put that weak glue on the back of his bookmark? And just like that, the Post-it note was born. This story is just the perfect illustration of a core truth about research. Sometimes, the most valuable discoveries are the ones you weren't even looking for. It shows you why it is absolutely crucial to stay open to the unexpected. But it also begs a much bigger question. I mean, think about it. We hear the word research everywhere, right? Politicians, advertisers, news anchors, they all say research shows. But is gathering a few opinions or reading a couple of articles online really research? Well, most of the time, the answer is a hard no. So to figure out what research truly is, we first have to bust a few myths about what it isn't. All right, let's get into it and bust some of these common myths. Because honestly, understanding how the word research gets misused is the first step to appreciating what it really means. Okay, so here are the big ones. Real research isn't just randomly gathering facts with no goal in mind. And it's not just shuffling that information around. You have to actually interpret it, figure out what it means. It's also definitely not some abstract thing that happens in an ivory tower. I mean, the Post-it story proves that. It has a real impact on our lives. And finally, and this is a big one, it is not just a buzzword to slap on a product to make it sound credible. So what's the real definition then? Well, true research is a systematic process, and it has a clear purpose, which is to find things out. Those two words, systematic and purpose, are everything. They're what separates real, rigorous research from just, poking around. But even when we know the definition, there's this huge conflict right at the heart of business research. And this conflict has a name. It's called the relevance gap. Basically, it's this huge divide between academic research, which is all about theory and being super rigorous, and the world of business practice, which needs answers that are useful and needs them like yesterday. The problem is, these two worlds often speak completely different languages. This table just lays out that tension perfectly. Look at the two sides. Academics are focused on the why. They're driven by this intense need for rigor, and their goal is to get published in a journal. Practitioners, on the other hand, they need the how-to. They're all about deadlines and getting actionable results they can use right away. You can see how these different priorities create this massive gap between them. So a researcher named Gerard Hodgkinson actually mapped this whole thing out, and it's brilliant. He saw that research can fall into one of four camps. At its worst, you've got puerile science. It's neither rigorous nor relevant, basically useless. Then there's popularist science, which might feel relevant, but it doesn't have the rigor to back it up, so you can't really trust it. Then you have pedantic science, which is technically perfect, super rigorous, but totally useless to anyone in the real world. The gold standard, the place we're all trying to get to, is what he called pragmatic science. This is work that is both incredibly solid and genuinely useful. So the big question is, how do we get there? So how do we actually achieve that pragmatic science ideal? Well, a whole community of scholars got together and came up with a path forward, a set of principles for doing responsible research. And at the very, very center of all these principles is one core idea. You can see it right there in the middle: service to society. The ultimate goal of business research shouldn't just be about publishing a paper or helping a company make more money. It should be about creating knowledge that actually helps build a better world. All the other principles basically support this central mission, and they create this really important balance. So on one side, you have the principles that make sure the research is rigorous. Things like using a sound methodology and valuing different kinds of academic work. That's the bedrock, right? It makes the research trustworthy. But that's not enough.
So on the other side, you have principles that are all about relevance, like actually involving the people affected by the research, the stakeholders, and then sharing what you find in a way they can actually use, not just burying it in some dense journal. It's this whole framework, this constant push and pull between rigor and relevance that can finally close that gap. Okay, so now that we've kind of defined research and talked about its big picture goals, let's bring it back to you. How do you actually start your own research journey? Because it's not just about following a checklist of steps, it's also about getting into the right mindset.
First things first, a little reality check. You know how textbooks show the research process as this nice, neat, straight line from A to B? Yeah, that's not how it works. The reality is, it's messy. You're going to find yourself going back to earlier stages, changing your ideas, and chasing leads that end up going absolutely nowhere. And listen, that is not a sign that you're failing. That's a sign you're doing real, authentic research. So this is basically a simplified map for that messy journey. You start by figuring out your topic and question. Then you dive into what's already known about it. From there, you design your plan, you go collect and analyze your data, and finally, you write it all up. Now, it looks like a nice straight line here, but just remember, in the real world, you'll be looping back and forth between these stages all the time. But maybe the single most important part of this whole journey isn't a step on a map at all. It's more like a constant state of mind, and it's called reflexivity. It's all about moving beyond the what you're doing and constantly asking why you're doing it. So, what does being reflexive actually mean? It means you are constantly aware of your own role in the process. You have to ask yourself things like, how are my personal assumptions shaping the questions I'm asking? Or how is my presence in the room affecting the people I'm interviewing? Or how are my own beliefs influencing the way I'm interpreting this data? It's this critical self-reflection that takes research from just good to truly great. Because in the end, research isn't a checklist you just follow. It's a journey of discovery. It's a systematic way of finding things out about business, about management, and honestly, about yourself. It can start with a failed glue and end with a product that's on every single desk in the world. So the real question is, where will your journey take you?